All right, everyone, we're back with episode number 3 of Lee County Unscripted. We are here with Jamie and Jenny from Precision Fitness and Aesthetics and Medicine.
Right.
Guys, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on our podcast. We like to talk about anything in Lee County and the surrounding Southwest Florida areas, and we know that you're slowly getting into the market here and have personally helped Mike and myself in different areas of fitness and health and things like that. So tell us a little bit about what it is that you two both do. You have very different roles, and
Right.
you make one amazing team in the business. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, thank you for having us. I'll
Thank
let you
you.
go first.
Been a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be on here. Precision is pretty multifaceted in what we do. We have trainers, we have dietitians, we have nurse injectors. We've got the precision medicine side, and then just basic med spa stuff. So we created the company 10 years ago. It's evolved, from when we first started, it was just personal training, basic spa, and nutrition. And now we've evolved it into what it is now. So, but our passion is to really tackle the obesity crisis we have right now, and not only adults, but in children, but also the impact and the weight challenges we see in first responders and in the military.
That's a really good segue for us, right? Because obviously Kim's husband is a police officer, and obviously my background. For Jenny, she's actually my baby cousin. So that sounds weird, calling you my baby cousin.
It's true, though.
Yeah.
But so watching you evolve over the years has been amazing, especially professionally. So I'm glad that you touched on the health and safety of first responders, because we're going to definitely dive into that part.
Yeah.
Well, and that's something that's personal for both of us with
Yeah,
our
all of us.
dads and my grandfather and all of that.
Yes. So we obviously grew up in the firefighter cop world, so we have a true understanding. And I wish we knew back then when we were kids of how and why things evolved and what was going on, kind of like what we do now.
Right.
Right. So how do you think business has changed for you guys, and how do you change your dynamic over the last 10 years with the introduction of Ozempic and the semaglutides and testosterone use?
Well, so the biggest thing that even like with Ozempic or Mounjaro, what I really want people to understand is that it's a peptide, and peptides are naturally occurring in the body. In the world, what I'm hoping is that this whole rush of like the skinny shot and weight loss helps to segue or open people up to the world of peptides, which is something Jamie's been dealing with for a long time. But peptides can be used for mental health. They can be used for anything, really. And they are literally the same peptides that we create naturally in our body. So it's not like you're taking systemic things. And when you add that into weight loss and everything else and eating the right diet and all of that, it really can help the person overall. And so I think I've totally lost my train of thought, but bringing that all together helps people from the inside out feel better, look better, do better.
And I think the thing people need to realize too is peptides are naturally occurring aminos and proteins within the body. So we produce 4,000 of them. They've only manufactured 123 of them. So they haven't even really touched the tip of what the body can actually do. And then going back to insulin was actually the first peptide ever created. So when people are looking at the GLPs and they're seeing the negativity, it all comes back to they're abusing the drug and they're using it for the wrong reasons. So they're thinking that they can augment their poor nutrition choices with this medication and they're going to achieve the goals they want, or they think they can eat one meal a day and then lose the weight. And no matter which way you go with it, whether you're on 90 milligrams of Adderall, whether you're on a fat burner or something that's suppressing the appetite down to the point where you're going to eat one meal a day, once you get to a point of being so lean, you are going to muscle waste. So that's where the controversy is coming back with it, is that it's muscle wasting. And unfortunately for some people, and I mean this with all due respect when I say it, they're really finding out how much body fat they're really carrying and how much lack of lean muscle they actually have. We see that in the bodybuilding world all the time, where when you get someone actually down to competition leanness, they're like, wow, I've lost a lot of muscle tone. It's like, no, you're actually seeing how much muscle tone you actually have.
Right.
It's less than what you thought. But, everything really starts around the gut. And that's where peptides like BPC 157 will step in, because it actually heals the gut, brings the inflammation down, which is going to increase dopamine and serotonin levels on it. So that's, is always our first rule where we work with people is You got to address the gut, then you got to address the adrenals, then you work on the thyroid function, then you can start talking about hormones. But it's very critical that you work in that order, because just like I was saying earlier, if you go on these GLPs or you go on a fat burner or you go on hormones, but you're not going to augment that with good nutrition and exercise, you're not getting a good ROI on your investment. You're only getting half the benefit of it.
Well, and it's, a lot of people don't realize that almost all of our neurotransmitters are made in our colon, not our brain. And the same fetal tissue that makes our brains makes our colon. So there is that gut-brain, relationship. And hormones and peptides and everything that we eat is responsible for regulating that. So when you are dealing with trying to biohack or just trying to be the best person that you can be, or dealing with any type of mental illness, whether it even just be generalized anxiety or ADD, we don't realize how everything that we do, even exposure to blue light, changes our chemistry and changes the way that our DNA is expressing itself.
You just gave me new meaning to shithead, literally.
Oh my God. You went there.
I
didn't even see that connection.
I think we have to steal that. Don't be a shithead.
Yeah, literally. Don't. And I think, we have talked many times about this, but the correlation of first responders and how even, as a first responder's wife, it takes a toll on you. You don't realize it. I'm like, no, I'm fine. But like you said, helping first responders, when they go on to nights and they're having their flipped schedule, how much that changes their entire body.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can speak more on that, but just the circadian rhythm, how much that changes, and they can't get their body to reproduce those cells, and they can't regenerate what they need to regenerate. And it's terrible for them. And the older they get, the harder it is to bounce back from all that. And I think just as we get older, it's harder to, even if you're eating healthy, you're not getting the same benefit as if you ate healthy. If I knew what I know now in my 20s, I would be a whole different person.
100%. I feel better. I'm about to be 40, and I feel better at that age than I have in my whole decade of my 20s. And that was from honestly meeting him and learning about diet. But the one thing that I have really dug in on with trying to get myself off of Adderall and understanding that that's a dopamine deficiency and how do I upregulate that is really learning how to balance the circadian rhythm. So shift workers can do very little things that don't cost any money to help reset their circadian rhythm when they're coming off of night shift to day shift. And it's just as simple, you guys live in the sunshine state. So your eyes are an extension of your brain, and they actually regulate melatonin and serotonin. So if you get outside in direct sunlight without sunglasses on, just for 5 to 10 minutes, it will help rebalance your circadian rhythm much faster than if you weren't to do that.
With those working nights, they try to black out curtains, black out shades, keep me like I'm a vampire, keep me away from the sun as much as possible.
Right.
So that's actually really good, because nurses and EMS, fire, and police officers, it's hard to bounce back and forth, especially when you have a young family.
Right.
I can't imagine, because I don't do well like that. I'm not that type of person.
Yeah.
And we have a rhythm for a reason. And that's the other thing, peptides help to follow that, or doing hormones in a specific way can help to follow your natural circadian rhythm. But there's so much coming out there, and I really do hope that awareness starts to spread. And I think you guys are doing a good job at that.
Yeah, and I think the big thing to point out too is just like what I talk to people about their nutrition. I think there's just some things that you have to really look in the mirror and be honest with. Birthdays aren't going away. Holidays aren't going away. Taking your spouse out on a date night isn't going away. Taking your kids out for ice cream, none of that's going away. And so when you look at first responders, that what they experience in the field is not going away until they quit the job. Mm-hmm. So then what do you do to augment or support them or support your system to handle those stressful moments? And that's where you really need to take a look at. There's the things that you can't control, okay, but then what can I control, and then what can I do to support the things that I can't control? When it comes to diet, if you go off a cheat meal, what's the fastest, quickest way to detox your system and get the toxic load off the body? That's one approach. And then like Jen was saying with first responders, okay, what can you do to help get them maximize the sleep that they do get? If it is a 4-hour, what can you do to get that? Increasing their magnesium, taking cortisol supplements, things that support their adrenal. And then for cops that have PTSD or any military or first responders, then there's peptides like dihexa, C-Max and stuff that will actually work on that. They're originally formulated for Parkinson's, dementia, and Alzheimer's, but they also have a profound impact on people like myself who've had multiple concussions.
Yeah, it was really cool. We went to a conference down here in Miami last March, and besides the peptides he listed, we learned a little bit about how oxytocin, which is what's released when you have a baby because it's the love hormone, so it allows for bonding between mother and baby, especially as their other hormones are crashing out. But we have a veteran that he's really dealing with some PTSD, and using intranasal oxytocin has been very helpful because it's allowing him to calm down, but it takes some of the inflammation off the brain, because once you have so many traumatic events, like you have so much inflammation on the brain, that's really hard.
As a retired officer, I can tell you, like, when you're working, you have more and more situations that happen, so you can kind of suppress what's going on.
Correct.
Right? And it doesn't come to fruition. It doesn't kind of percolate to the top. When you retire and you get out of it, everything starts coming back, and you're like, things years ago that I completely forgot about that are now coming back up to the top for me. So, you know, I understand like what some of those guys and men and women are going through. So it used to be a negative connotation before, and now like society is like, this is legit. Like there's really big things that are going on, and we can't just kind of turn a blind eye and pretend like, put on a mask and like we're okay. And so it's good to know that there's professionals like you guys out there that are help identifying and getting people the help that they need.
That numbing yourself with medications isn't the answer either, because
self-medicating with alcohol, because that's why alcohol is so high.
All that, whether it's alcohol, drugs, or prescription drugs, is also destroying your gut environment.
Yeah.
You know, and again, remember, if that gut health is off, then everything else is off. Your hormones are off. Your serotonin and dopamine levels are off. Your ability to absorb nutrients is off. Your probably anxiety is up. You know, it's going to lead to a host of problems with it. And it's just, you're putting a Band-Aid on the problem. They're treating the symptom, but they're not treating the cause, which is what we always find really big with what we do. Is prescription meds are usually to treat the symptom, not the cause. Well, our goal is find the cause, treat the cause. If prescription medication is needed because you've exhausted everything else, then you can take a look at it.
Sure.
But there should be steps in a process to get to the baseline and repair that, and then reevaluate on what's needed.
It's really good that it's coming up though too, because it has to come up to heal. And so like the body will keep the score, and you know, that's where I think physical fitness helps, like moving your body, moving the emotion. So sometimes I think it was good for you to say that, because sometimes people don't want to feel that. And then they're like, why is this coming up? And then there's this whole like negative self-talk that happens, and you try to compartmentalize it even more. We were talking to a friend this weekend. It's, you know, it's like cancer. You can put your head in the sand, but if you don't address it and deal with it, then it will come up.
You know, you brought it up too, is like, you get conditioned to the stress that you live in. And then at that point, when you consider like, and someone asks, are you stressed? And you're like, no, I'm fine, because you're conditioned. It's just like a workout. When you're conditioned to working out 5 days a week, you're conditioned to handle that. When you go on vacation, you haven't worked out in a week, and then you come back, everybody's like, man, I feel like I haven't worked out in like a month. Well, it's the same thing. You remove yourself from the stress, like you go on vacation, then when you come back into that stressful, then you realize actually how stressed you are on a day-to-day. Or the flip side of it is, it isn't until something bigger than that you're normally stressed about, something bigger happens, you're like, man, that was a stressful day.
Right.
But it's like, that doesn't mean the body isn't tackling stress every single day. You need to figure out ways to support your system: exercise, diet, sauna, getting up in the sunlight, going and watching the sun go down, reset your circadian rhythm, hot, cold transition showers, meditation, journaling. I have actually found journaling in the PM to be really beneficial, because it really allows me to get my emotions out, and then I'm not going to bed on them, so I actually sleep better. You know, like everybody wants to journal, and I do journal in the morning. I had to write my daily gratitudes and write with everything first, but being able to do it at night. And I'm working with a guy called Steve Eckert, former Marine, and he calls it brain dumping. Yeah. And it's just like, get it all out, no matter what it is, just say it and just brain dump. And that's usually my biggest section.
I think something that's different about you all, and you don't give yourself enough credit for this, is you're not just prescribing whatever. You really sit down, you start with, okay, we're going to start with, how are you feeling? You know, what are the symptoms? What would you like? And then you go into blood work, and then you analyze the blood work, and then you go from there. And you're not just jumping in and saying, okay, take all this medication and, you know, let me know. It's check-ins. It's all sorts of things.
Yep.
You're not overdosing people on, the medication that, what are they called? The
GLP.
Yeah.
GLPs.
Yeah. You're not overdosing on that. You're just like microdosing, or try a little bit of this or a little bit of that. We don't want to make big changes. That's the difference, I think, of a lot of companies out there like, oh, okay, well, here you go. Here's all this stuff. See you later. And you guys have the science behind it to back up all that.
Right.
Well, and I think, thank you. And I think it just comes from how I would want to be treated. This whole paternal perspective in medicine, I think, has to go like, okay, you're going to do what I tell you to do because I'm the one with the degree and that's how it's going to be. I don't like that because medicine is a forever evolving science, and it's always based on the patient, and the patient is the variable. And there's so many variables. Like sometimes we can start a perfect plan and we don't know what's happening. And so going slow and steady. And honestly, I took an oath to do no harm, but I also took like best practices, lowest amount of medication, best possible patient outcome. I learn from every patient. He learns from every patient. And it's those little micro adjustments, but that's also what's led us to innovating and evolving into just being a gym and a spa into medicine. It's from my own personal story. It's from his own personal story. Like once we were done getting out of the shutdown, and that's when I was finishing grad school, my body completely shut down. Like I stopped ovulating, my thyroid shut down, everything. So it's just that has led me down rabbit holes, which I think is God's way of allowing me to then help other people.
Yeah. And how many doctors out there now are talking about gut health and, your microbiomes and this and that, when even 2 years ago, if you said something like that to a doctor, they would laugh you off and say, here, go take a, heartburn medication or, pain medication. And now they're like, well, now we need to get to the bottom of it. We're like, okay, so now there are other people seeing the light that you guys have been seeing for years.
Right.
Well, and I think it's going to get better, I hope. But even like what we've talked about before, because, the MTHFR variation, people didn't even know. Some doctors don't know what that is, and then some don't even know what to do with it, but it's a real thing. And when you have it and then you start to get the vitamins that you need, you're like, oh, wow, okay, I actually am not crazy,
And I think it's really important to point out that whatever it is, there is no instant gratification. And sadly, in society today, everybody wants instant gratification of like, how do I lose 10 pounds in 2 minutes, right? Like it's just, that's not it. No. It's a lifestyle.
It's like saying, how do I save $1,000 in 10 minutes?
Right. It's like, it's just not meant to happen that way. Like your body is not meant to process like that. And you guys go, like Kim was saying, the science behind it and understanding like, how do we heal the problem and then treat the symptoms? And I love the way you said that, Jamie.
Yeah. And I think the most sustainable thing to kind of bounce off what you're saying, extend on it, the most sustainable approach and something that you can live on is proper diet, exercise, sleep management, and self-care.
That's the foundation.
That's the foundation that you can do long-term. That's like a long-term prescription you can write out. GLPs are like a tool in Batman's tool belt.
Right.
You use it to help you get you to a point, but it's not something you should rely on to be on for the rest of your life. No medication should be like that.
Right.
It's just you can use them as tools. You can use the GLP to knock your insulin from an 18 down to around a 6, because anything over 12, you can eat carrots and live on a treadmill and you're not going to burn fat and lose weight.
Right.
But that's going back to what you were saying with the doctors. Doctors, what are they're going to pull? Glucose. If you're lucky, they're going to pull A1C. Okay, well, that's just a small piece of the puzzle. Until you figure out where insulin is at, is where you can really start moving the needle. So that's the biggest thing, is just go back, like you said, create the base and make that a sustainable part of your life. Learn how to create that into a habit, not just when it's convenient and you're not liking the way you feel or look, or you have a wedding or you have a vacation coming up. You just want this quick fix to get yourself in, and then you go back to all these poor habits. It's the same way as like a financial advisor would talk to someone trying to save money. Like you can't just save when it's convenient.
Right.
It's like you're never going to get to where you want to be at.
And it's also important to, I'm sorry, Jane, but it's also important to, I would imagine, and I'm sure you guys do this, like you analyze your financial goals every single year, your business goals every single year. I imagine you guys go over health and fitness with your clients. Like, what are your goals this year? And what do we need to change and evolve? Because how you were in your 20s, you're not the same in the 40s, and your body's not going to respond.
Right.
I love that analogy. Like he really does it well, like with the financial. And I know like you've been really good with finances and stuff like that. And, we all have things that we learn and pick up along the way. And then I think our role in this world is to then all fill each other's gaps. And so we all have specialties that we know, we all have things that we know, and then like you help people with real estate, you know what I mean? Like there's just gaps. And so it's not weird, or like I don't think people should feel like they're inadequate if they seek help.
Right.
You know, but the other thing that's happening, not to make it sound so overwhelming, to your point with what you've both said, you know, we start with micronutrients first because there's a lot of things that are even lacking in our food, soil, and water. And so that's changing. So more and more people are becoming unable to get what they need from food, and it starts that small. So when you start from a micronutrient perspective, most of the time you don't need as much medication. And for example, like just from personal experience, we did some micronutrient testing. I was curious to see because of my dad's story. And I realized that some people can be deficient in lithium. So lithium is a medication that's given in the psychiatric world for people that have psychosis or bipolar and stuff like that. I didn't realize that it was actually a mineral that's in water and in soil. And so I didn't know that people could just be deficient. And so you can actually take over-the-counter lithium if you're deficient, and it will actually help be a mood stabilizer. And in fact, there is research that in areas of higher crime, like murder, suicide, all that stuff, there's lower lithium levels in the water. So I wish that our government would start testing water, testing soil, testing us when we're born to see if we have MTHFR, because then you get to know what your body is actually doing and how we need to go from there.
Yeah,
and that's the purpose of blood work and stuff too.
And I was actually one of those lithium people. I lacked impulse control, had little to none.
Because you were frozen.
And so being on it made me way more stable, and I wasn't so reactive to situations. So, you know, I was definitely one of those. And the reason why I always use the money as an analogy when I talk nutrition, because people, I think everybody at some point in their life has felt the pain of broke.
Sure.
You know, and people realize how fast they can be back to being broke.
Yeah.
And the problem is with health, we don't feel the impact as quickly with the pain, with the choices we're making, with the pain of our health. Because usually we won't see the repercussions of our choices for 10 to 15 years. So whatever you're doing now, it's not like all of a sudden next month you're going to be diabetic. You know, it's not going to be about another 5, 10, 15 years down the road where you actually, like your doctor saying, hey, you're like diabetic.
Right.
And you're like, well, when did this start? Probably
It's
about
been going
5,
on.
10. Yeah, it's like it just all of a sudden happened.
So it's okay to not be okay, right? And admit it, right? Like that is a perfectly good thing. You guys have patients in many states. How would someone reach out to you and get in contact with you guys if they love what you're talking about and they want to, or love what you're talking about and they want to explore the direction that you guys go?
I would say, like, if they want to go through the website, they can put in a request for a consultation. We can give you guys our contact information as well, so they can call or email. And yeah, I'm licensed in Massachusetts and Florida, and I hope to spread that as well. But it's nice because I'm able to then also treat people that I like and family members and all that stuff. Not that I don't treat people that I don't like, but you know what I mean. Yeah. I like everybody, but like that's a lie. I don't know.
This is an honest, unscripted,
Completely unscripted.
not wrong.
Yeah.
I want to help everybody. That doesn't mean I like everybody.
Our dietitians and personal trainers can work with people pretty much everywhere. Sure. So they can write your workout programs, no matter if you want to do workouts at home, if you want to do them in your own gym, you know, wherever you want to do them. We can even write travel workouts for people, you know, people that are always traveling. And then, of course, our dietitians, basically what they do is the same thing as they would do in person. The difference would be we'd either would send you to a gym or like a nutrition shop to get like an InBody done or some way of measuring your body composition and then report that back to us. At minimum, just send us your weight and we'd show you how to tape your waist and your hips, measure yourself along that way. And we do biweekly consultations that are about 30 minutes through Zoom. And then we just discuss on what's working, what's not working, and kind of get the feedback. And then we readjust your plan and then we send it back out.
Yeah. And we can help everybody nationwide until they need a prescription. And so then there's ways around that. Like if they come once annually or if we can meet up somewhere once annually, then it allows me to provide for them for a year or our medical team. But then we also just came out with our precision nutraceuticals and we're coming out with a precision skincare that allows us to help people without a prescription
The
too.
nutraceuticals, those are your nutrition or your supplements,
Yes.
correct? Okay,
Yes.
yeah, just so people understand that.
Yes.
And the nice thing about that line that I really like is that we have a piece of it is called the balance line. And so the key thing with the balance line is because people get worried about, I'm taking this supplement, I'm taking this, and I'm taking this. And, each one of them has like the zinc in it and vitamin D. I'm afraid I'm going to go over my daily doses what I'm supposed to. So the balance line allows you could take the entire line and never have to worry about overdosing on one particular vitamin or mineral. And that was the key thing about it.
Yeah. And then the multivitamin has the methylated B vitamins for people with MTHFR.
And you were saying the most common in women, correct me if I'm wrong, it was thyroid and the methylene supplement, and you've combined those two now.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Jamie, what you were saying about creating workout plans, it's nice for people to know that they don't have to belong to the gym. They don't have to go. They could wake up and do a simple at-home workout to get their body started on your programs,
Right.
Versus having to sign up for a gym and go there. Because it's when you're overweight and you're not feeling your best, who wants to show up at a gym and be like, here I am?
Well, it's funny. Going back, oh God, I can't remember how many years, but it's going back these 12, 13 years. I remember I applied was applying to rent space as a trainer. And they were kind of interviewing me going with it. And they kind of like, well, you kind of just do like, because I was a bodybuilder at the time. And they're like, oh, you just kind of do bodybuilding. I'm like, dude, I can kick your butt in that parking space with just your body weight in like 5 minutes.
Can.
You know?
And Jimmy's like, yes.
And so people forget about that. And then I go back to like military and calisthenics. Like, military, it's not like they're all in the weight room hitting benches and squats all day long. I mean, they're just going along with body weight squats and push-ups. So people forget about that. Like, sometimes when you're short on equipment, like having the right design program, the right rep schemes, you can kick your own butt with just your body weight.
You guys have been in business for a number of years. I don't like focus on anything negative ever, right? So what are 3 things that you would give to young entrepreneurs that want, like, what were 3 lessons that you would want to teach somebody? I changed gears completely on y'all.
No, but this is
good.
We've been thinking about this a lot, actually.
It's like I knew.
I think the biggest and first and foremost is creating a budget line for an accountant. Even if that means you're meeting up with them just once a quarter, just make sure that your finances in order, and honestly, it will save them money in the long run when they have to do your taxes because they're already kind of keeping a pulse and getting everything together. Mm-hmm. So that would help with that. If you're going to lease a facility, then definitely make sure you get a broker that can walk you through the leases and stuff. You guys know all about that. Yeah. I mean, talk about how they really like to hide stuff in there. Mike, you're going to laugh at this. I just gave this analogy because I'm dealing with our landlord, and this guy's like a detective. Like he wants to be your friend. And like, oh, I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you, and do this. And then really what he's trying to do is just figure out how he's going to, just get information. Like, man.
Right.
So it's just, make sure that you're covered in that aspect. And then I think, and Jen, you can jump in after this one, but I think the other thing is when you're raising capital, make sure you raise enough capital to have at least 90 days of working capital in the account. And I think that's one thing when people think about raising capital for a company is like, okay, I'm going to need rent money. I'm going to need this equipment or whatever it is, blah, blah, blah. The one thing they forget about is to have at least 90 days of working capital in that account. And that will relieve so much pressure off you. And because if you're constantly focused and worried about how you're going to pay the bills next month, you're really not focusing on your company and how you can grow it because you're just in fear and repair mode, not actually growth and success mode.
Yeah, and I think making sure you have a vision and a clear map on how to get there and putting that front and center and staying true to that because fear is going to come up when you're, and we both operate better when our back's a little bit against the wall anyway, but it's like that there's a balance there because if you are consumed by fear and not able to really do your craft well, then that you're going to have a disconnect with whoever your consumer is. So I think one, making sure that you're comfortable with sales because we're always selling no matter who you are or what industry you do, and equipping yourself with the right team. So we all like knowing what your gifts are and knowing what your limitations are and then filling in the holes there. So whether it be accounting, whether it be somebody to help you with your lease, but then also who's going to be really good. Like, because usually when you have 2 types of people go into business. It's the dreamer and the artist who usually need someone to keep them in line, or it's the entrepreneur, which is really business motivated. And so like usually together they make a good team.
Mm-hmm. And the entrepreneur needs the dreamer and the artist.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They need to augment each other on that.
And I definitely, Kim and I know you guys do as well, but Kim is exceptional at things that I suck at, quite honestly.
And vice versa.
Right. And then we just know, we play good cop, bad cop a lot. And sometimes
bad cop, bad cop.
True. Sometimes bad cop. But we tap into each other's strengths, and those just come to. It's just like just natural for us.
It's ego though too, right? You
Yeah.
both can't have an ego.
Yeah.
No.
You know,
Yeah.
you have to know when to check yourself and say, okay, you take this one on because I'm not going to be able to handle that.
100%.
Because like you said, you don't like everybody you work with. Like
Right.
it just does, it's human nature that you can't.
And that's okay.
And
It is
majority
okay.
of the time,
They
Yeah.
might, yeah.
exactly. Majority of the time, it's great. But then you, once in a while, have these ones that you're just like, you have to take this over. And you know what? It's so nice to have that partner because I did this before without a partner and he did this before without a partner. And once you guys get the dynamic that you all have and we have to say, hey, I need you to take this over, you know, it's the best feeling in the world not to have to say, well, I'm going to deal with this head on.
That's 100% true because like you guys are partners and I know you're close, but like we have to make sure that we stay in our lanes and also know when to check that because we're married. And so then it's like, okay, like that doesn't need to be something that we argue about or whatever. So it's also making sure that you take care of yourself and keep yourself filled up so then you can be the best for everybody else as well.
Yeah.
And that's a hard dynamic as a husband and wife to be in business together because you guys are with each other. Not all the time, but essentially, like even if you're in different parts of the building, you're essentially with each other all the time, and that can be a really hard challenge to separate business from personal and not let those worlds collide at home.
Yes.
To be honest with you, you hear that a lot. And being 10 years in business together now, I will tell you, I couldn't imagine another business partner that would understand me the way I click and work and function. She knows when to like push against me, like really push me, like, hey, you, and she also knows like, all right, I know I'm pushing too hard and when to back off a little bit, right? So like knowing how to talk to me and communicate with me is huge because the business partner married or not, if two business partners cannot communicate, guess what's getting hurt?
Sure.
The business.
Sure.
It is the overall thing that suffers the most.
You're 100% right because I get that with Kim. She knows how to communicate with me, and then I get the other side of it with Cece with the wedding venue, and like they know how to push those buttons, like you were saying, and what motivates me and to keep me focused,
Right?
And like, hey, snap out of it, idiot, you shithead.
Well, and I do think, like, not to sound sexist here, but there is something to a male-female role. We all have masculine and feminine energy, but like, there are times where I can be too emotional, and he'll be a little bit more calm, and I'm like, okay, suck it up. Got to put my big girl pants on and just do my job. You know what I mean? So there is definitely blessings in that, and I think it helps you develop as a person yourself too when you have somebody, because we all have blind spots and we all have flaws. You know.
And then there's definitely times where I'm like way too aggressive. And she's like, you need to rewrite that.
Let's reel that in a little
you
bit.
need to go back and rewrite that email and bring the emotion down. Put a little of the right emotion in and take the wrong emotion out,
Right.
because it definitely is a very heated email that I'll write. You know.
Yes, I'm always like, send that to me before you send that out. Like, double check that.
Yeah,
But we've got,
I
like,
can't
I'll
send
check in.
anything without. She's like, let me read it first. I'm like, all right.
I think the other thing to remember, and this is in business and life, is that there's seasons to everything. So when it feels like you're going through a season that's really hard, just remember that there's always something to take away from it. There's always an opportunity to take. And it can be really freaking hard, but you will learn something. I mean, we've made plenty of mistakes. Depends on how you're going to use it.
Yeah, mistakes are lessons.
Yeah.
And Kim yells at me all the time for silver lining everything. Like, oh yeah, like you just lost your arm, but look, you can still
You have another
function
one.
and you have another one, right? Like you can still feed yourself and you can still punch me with your other one, right? Like I will always silver line things because it could always be worse. And, if you focus on the negative, my belief is you will attract negative energy. And the
Right.
more negative energy you attract, it throws everything out of whack and you're just down this vortex.
Yep,
Now
you're
you
right.
got me talking in like down this black hole that I just went down.
What you said about learning from your mistakes, we just had that in our last podcast, and it holds true in every facet of life. Like, yeah, you may be going through a lot of stuff, but you'll find out why you're going through it because you're going to learn something from it. And you guys are smart enough to know that.
No, it's taking a lot of work.
And that's, I would
a lot
say
of
that
self-development.
the biggest work I did on myself in business and in life was learn how to control fear. Fear used to cripple me, and I make very irrational and impulsive decisions. And being the first, you can't act like that. Like you can't let fear, because you're going to make a mistake. You either get yourself killed or your partner killed. Like you can't react like that. And you can. That's the same thing. You make an an emotional decision in business, that could be the thing that kills your company, right then and there because of your irrational behavior. So learning how to use fear as a tool to like make me think and stay calm was a big driving factor in that. And like Jen was bringing up seasons, like I've actually learned to like to live in winter, and because winter is the struggle season. Because that's where it forces me to be creative. It forces me to think outside the box. It makes me find ways to find my money that needs to feed the baby. You know, and we have a hungry baby at work. It has a huge appetite. And then summer actually I've learned it scares me. Yeah, that's where I started like, okay, because that's when things are smooth.
That's when your foot comes off the gas pedal.
That's right. And that's like what Jen said. You know, you open a company, your shoulders are buried into the corner. I mean, you come out swinging every morning trying to figure out how you're going to make it work. Mm-hmm. You know, I like to still work with my shoulders touching the corner, not buried in it, because if my shoulders aren't, then that tells me that that's probably when I'll break a habit or do something that has been moving the needle the whole time. And I just get complacent and the creativity and stuff goes away. And next thing you know, 30, 45 days later, you're like, man, what happened? Numbers are down. Well, the problem started 30 days ago when you got lazy because you were comfortable because things were working so well for you.
Which goes back to the original of figuring out what the problem is, treating the problem, and then making the micro doses and changing as you go.
I like that micro doses because it is like if you just go slow and figure it out and make small shifts, like what did they say, like 2 millimeter shifts?
Yeah.
That's
like
it.
a surgeon.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's surgeons are like make a 2 millimeter incision. It's like they talk about the same thing. Just make a 2 millimeter shift and just watch it and watch the progression over it, measure it, and see how well it's working. And then you can make another change.
And that's the hardest thing because, like you said earlier, it's that delayed gratification is so hard.
Yeah,
right.
For the human.
And sadly, we do live in that instant gratification. It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you guys for being our first guest, especially being my baby cousin. And I love watching you guys grow, not only as individuals, but together, right? Because, you know, you're super important to me. And then, Jamie, you ultimately become super important to me because of Jen. But watching you guys come together as one and provide this amazing service to people in your communities, first responders and things, and military, but also as individuals. Like, I'm super grateful for being able to be part of this journey.
We appreciate the opportunity to be on here. And the one thing I forgot to say too is like, especially with the nutrition and the training, first responders always get a 15% discount. So we always discount that down. And I'll be honest, like right now I'm working with an individual who really couldn't afford it. Mm-hmm. And I'm foregoing my fees to help.
Well, you said the 15% discount, right? And I know because you and I have talked many times well before this, and I know how you are as a person, and you as well, like growing up. And I know how you guys are, where if somebody really needed the help, you're gonna give it to them because you're not motivated by money. No. You're motivated by service and helping, and that is what separates you guys from the pill mills or the people that
a good word.
That's what separates you guys.
Well, and I think that we all attract each other because we're all like-minded, and that's a blessing because yes, of course, like I can even get caught up in watching like some competitors go from like 0 to 60, but I also know their philosophy and their business model, and there's nothing wrong with that, but success without fulfillment isn't really success. Like you can't die with money, but you can die with a legacy and an impact. Yeah. And I do think that the way that we were raised with the Hollow family, you know, that did instill something. Your parents and my grandparents especially, and also my dad, they give back. Even my mom, they give back. They give back all the time. They do things. And so that was always instilled in me. And, you know, I know that if you do the right thing will always happen. It might not happen. It might be delayed, but you know.
You do it for the right reasons, because if you're doing it looking for something in return, it's not coming.
Yep.
Well, and I appreciate you guys having us. I appreciate that you trust us and believe in us. And I appreciate that I've loved watching you make your life here, especially being, you know, a transplant. Now you've been here for so long, but you've made such a name in a community that you're not even like originally from. And that's a big deal. And so that's a legacy in itself. And I appreciate that.
Why are you trying to make me blush?
You did get a little red.
I did. You made me blush. I think it's because the door's closed.
It's hot in here.
You want the outro, Edward? Yeah, sure. Edward is not a man of many words, let me tell you.
He's the man, but he gets the Oz.
He is the Oz. He gets shit done. Always. He does make us look good. Our business, because of Edward, has transformed.
That's
you know,
awesome.
Kim and I, used to try to take on the whole we can do it all, right? And like going back to what, not to reopen this door again, but like we used to try to do a lot like, oh, we can handle that. And finally, like, no, we can't.
Right.
Let the experts do the expert thing.
Yep.
That's what it goes down to.
We tell people all the time, you hire us because we are the professional in this field.
Yes.
Yep.
You wouldn't try to come buy a house in Florida and not know anything about Florida and go, that's fine. I can just do a for sale by owner. Just, I'll find the paperwork online.
No.
Okay, good luck. Well, that's why you guys are the professionals and you handle all of that.
Right.
No, and you guys will be finding our real estate when we're ready. You know, and the other thing I want to say is every business is marketing and innovation. So like it's, we are in a time in the world where people want to see you and they want to develop a relationship with you before they even have that relationship.
Sure. And when you want to work in wintertime all the time, you can just come down here because it's warm.
I like the pressure of winter, but I'll enjoy the sunshine and water every day and be fine.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 3 of Lee County Unscripted. If you would like to get in contact with Jenny or Jamie, let us know and we'll put you in contact with them. If you have any ideas that you would like us to, or guests that we should have, drop us a note as well. Thanks so much for tuning in.